The monks called it a monastery. The bees called it a body and moved in and made it theirs, cell by cell. And the monks left in the night with their sandals in their hands. They were not bees. That was the first lie of the place. Paper-wasps. And they had not died one at a time, the way honest things do. They went in the space of a single breath. Every mouth in the house fell quiet at once, and the house has been trying ever since to finish the scream they dropped. Wonderful. A crowd. A week ago, a frightened man with a torch did the arithmetic wrong. Burn the queen, scatter the swarm. He thought he was killing one thing. He had no notion he was performing surgery on a single animal the size of a building. They built their walls out of the world, chewed it, swallowed it, spat it back as architecture. Wood, door frames, a hymn book or two. I found a verse pressed into the wax like a fossil. They had been reading, in their way. Heat loosens a place this full of the dead. By noon, the whole house stank of warm honey and old meat, and there was buzzing, though every wing in the building had stopped a week ago. The buzzing was coming from inside my own skull. Then the book came. It always comes. Not a book, really. A wound the world keeps in the shape of one. One funeral true for the many, and the one. Mourn them as individuals, the grave splits. Mourn them as a single mind, it stays open for the thousand it erases. Can't grieve 1,000 graves. Can't grieve the one. Splendid carpentry. A door that won't open and won't stay shut. Every funeral I ever rung assumed a subject, a him, a her, of this one thing that stopped. The book was telling me no such thing was buried here, or 1,000 such things were, and the moment I answered any one of them by name, the rest would tear the grave in half, hauling toward graves of their own. A swarm hadn't died in this house. A person had. A person with 1,000 mouths and no name. And I had until the rot finished its own work to learn the last thing on its mind, before it stopped being a mind at all. There was a witness. There always is, if you'll widen what you let count as one. The beekeeper's daughter, Lel, raised next to a hive that thought and never once heard it. Born deaf, every doctor agreed. Nothing to be done. But deaf isn't the same as deafened. That hive had spoken to her, her entire childhood, through the soles of her feet, the small of her back against the wall, her teeth when she set her jaw to the warm wax. 1,000,000 wings make a music you don't hear. You stand in it. What did it sound like when it died? She hadn't the word for it. She had the thing itself, which was better and worse. This what came up through her, hand to stone to hand. Not a sound, a shape. For years the hive had held one steady chord. She pressed harder to show me, an even weight, a note you could lean your whole body against. One animal, breathing. Then the morning the queen burned, the cord didn't fade, it broke. Lel made me feel the exact instant one mind became 1,000 strangers who had never met, every set of it suddenly alone in the dark, each buzzing its own small private terror, none able to find the others. 1,000 deaths, yes, but not one of them died of dying. They died of discovering they had ever been one. It didn't mourn the dying. It mourned coming apart. Spent its last hour not as 1,000 wasps trying to live, as one thing trying to stay one. There it was. The book hadn't handed me a riddle. It had handed me a mercy I didn't know the shape of. Grieve the 1,000, and I'd be agreeing the last true thing was the breaking. The strangers, the dark, and the grave would split because I'd have called it split already. Grieve the 1, and I'd be lying, and 1,000 erased miles would gape open to say, but it did, we felt it come. I'll be honest, since no one else here will be. The cheat sat right there in reach. Say the pretty thing. 1 hive, 1 heart, gone gentle in its sleep. File the corners off. The ledger can't read a heart, only a right. Hand it the silhouette of a closed grave and walk out clean. I've done worse for thinner reasons. I had the chalk against the slate. But the witness was deaf, not credulous. She'd taken the truth all the way up through her jaw, and now she watched me decide whether I'd honor it. There are worse judges in this world than a girl who can only know a thing by how hard it shakes her. Then not the 1, not the 1,000. I'll mourn the wanting. It wanted to stay whole. That's the single true thing 1,000 mouths were all saying. A pit was out. A pit is a number, and the instant it's a number, it's 1,000. So I laid them in a line that never breaks, head to tail to head, every wasp able to touch the next and never be alone. So the shape would say 1, even while my hands knew it for many. I rang it once. The note came out smothered. Wax had crept up into the bronze and choked the sound off in its own throat, a chime with a hand clamped over its mouth. Fitting enough. A bell that couldn't get the sound all the way out, for a thing that never got its scream all the way out either. You were one of you. I won't dishonor that by counting, and I won't pretend you didn't feel yourself scatter into strangers at the end. I felt it too, secondhand, up through the stone, and it is the loneliest thing I have ever borrowed. You wanted to stay whole. You were whole, for 1 breath longer than the world would allow. Here, in this line, you are whole again. It took the line, not 1,000 graves, 1, cut in the shape of a thing that refused to be plural even as it died of being plural. The book had asked for a right true for the many and the 1. The trick, the only trick there ever was, is that the many had wanted to be the 1. And grief is the single place in this trade where you're allowed to give the dead the thing they wanted instead of the thing that was so. The payout arrived the way it always does, indifferent, on time, like wages. A fragment, lodging the way a splinter lodges, the kind you only find years on. From now, I'd be able to feel a grief through anything I laid a hand against. A gift from a girl and 1,000 mouths, sorted and forwarded by something that has no idea what a gift is. One. 1,000 of you, and it moved by 1. I went to report it the way the rules insist. Log the kind, log the settle, collect the stamp. After the nameless beast, it had taken a shrug and a wax seal. I expected the same. Colonies aren't mourned. The rule's older than this association. A grave admits 1 keeper, 1. What you've set down here was 1. That was the whole of the problem, and the whole of the answer. It was 1,000 wasps. It was 1 grief. I've buried it. The grave closed. Graves don't close on multitudes. They can't. If yours closed, then either you're lying to me, or you've done the one thing the register forbids, and you had better pray it's the lie. Strike it. I'd swallowed every rule they ever handed me. Until that one. They don't forbid mourning a colony because it can't be done. They forbid it because it can, and because the count, when it moves, proves a thing they would rather went on uncounted. That was the first rule I broke. I'd like to claim I wrestled with it. I didn't. I kept my pen still and watched a frightened man insist his rule book was older than grief. 1,000 dead. The choir moved by one. All this while I'd taken the number for a body count. One soul, one tick, plain as a butcher's tally. It isn't. 1,000 went into that floor and the count gave up a single digit, which means the choir has never once been counting the dead. It counts the griefs. One grief, one tick. 1,000 mouths screaming the identical scream is, to whatever keeps this book, a single voice gone quiet. I drew a line under it. Don't ask me why. Then a second, as if the second would make it smaller. You underlined it twice. The second stroke was the one that frightened you. Good. Now you're beginning to understand what you've joined and what has been counting all along. Alone had drawn that second line 10 minutes ago. Alone, in a locked room, on the far side of a dead county. And the letter knew the stroke before my hand made it. How long have you been reading over my shoulder? Longer than you've been keeping count.